Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in everyone's life when the noise fades, the crowd disappears, and the road in front of you stands empty. No applause, no company, no one to push you forward. Only you, your breath, and the next step. And it's in those quiet, lonely moments that life reveals something most people never understand. You become stronger when you walk alone. Not because you don't need people, not because you want isolation, but because there are seasons meant for you and you alone, seasons that shape your character, refine your purpose, and build a kind of strength that can't be shaken by anyone or anything. So tonight, I want to talk about why walking alone is not a weakness, but one of the most powerful phases of your journey. When life pulls you into a season where you have to walk alone, it has a way of stripping away the noise, the expectations, the masks, and the distractions. In that quiet where there's no applause, no validation, and no one telling you what you should be, you start meeting the real you, not the version of you shaped by pressure, not the version molded by opinions. The version that rises when nobody is watching, the one that must find strength without being pushed, supported, or praised. Walking alone becomes a mirror, and sometimes that reflection is the first honest truth you've faced in years. In solitude, you learn what drives you when there's no crowd. You discover whether your dreams were truly yours or just borrowed from people who never had to live your life. Many people follow paths chosen for them. Family expectations, friendships, trends, pressure. But the moment you walk alone, all of those voices fade. What remains is your own, and hearing your own voice, your deepest desires, fears, and values, is powerful. It's the roadmap to a life that belongs to you, not a life you were pushed into. Some of the strongest people in history found themselves through isolation. Think of athletes who wake up before sunrise when no one sees the grind. Think of leaders who spent years in obscurity learning, preparing, growing. Think of every person who has ever made something great out of themselves. They all had a chapter where they walked alone. They weren't surrounded by cheers. They weren't applauded for waking up early, grinding, sacrificing, or struggling. But those lonely hours became their foundation. Solitude didn't weaken them, it revealed them. Walking alone also exposes what you've been avoiding. When you're surrounded by people, busyness becomes an escape. You don't have to face your insecurities, your past, your doubts. But when you sit with yourself, those truths show up. And instead of running, you finally confront them. That confrontation is not comfortable, but it's necessary. Growth demands honesty, strength demands truth, and sometimes the only place you hear that truth is in silence. You learn what you truly want from life. Not what you were taught to want, not the image, the lifestyle, the approval, but what your soul actually craves. Some people discover they don't want the crowd at all, they want peace. Some realize they're stronger than they ever believed, capable of surviving storms without leaning on anyone. Others finally understand their gifts, talents, and purpose, because solitude gave them the space to explore themselves. Loneliness and walking alone are not the same. Loneliness is a feeling. Walking alone is a choice. And it's a choice powerful people make when they're building something the world won't understand yet. When you choose to walk alone, you choose clarity over confusion. You choose authenticity over acceptance. You choose growth over comfort. That path shapes you into someone who isn't easily influenced or broken. Even science backs the power of time spent alone. Studies show that people who embrace solitude are more confident, more creative, and emotionally stronger. Their decision-making improves, their patience grows. They learn how to think instead of react. They stop seeking constant reassurance and instead trust themselves. That self-trust becomes their anchor. When you walk alone, you begin learning what you can survive. You discover what hurts you, what heals you, what pushes you, and what holds you back. You become your own teacher. You begin appreciating your own company, not because you don't need others, but because you finally understand your worth without them. Walking alone doesn't mean you'll live alone forever. It means when people come into your life, you'll choose them from strength, not from fear. You won't cling, you won't depend, you won't shrink yourself to be accepted. You'll stand tall because you met yourself in the wilderness, and you liked who you became there. That's the gift of walking alone. It reveals the truth, it builds the foundation, it shapes the character, it prepares you for the life you're meant to live, and once you discover who you really are, no crowd can distract you, no opinion can break you, and no fear can stop you. You'll walk back into the world stronger, clearer, and ready for the future that belongs to you. There comes a point in life when you realize that solitude isn't a punishment, it's preparation. It's the quiet space where strength is built brick by brick, unseen by the world. When you step away from the noise, the chatter, the expectations, and the constant pull of other people's emotions, you begin to grow in ways you never thought possible. Solitude sharpens your mind and toughens your spirit because it forces you to meet life with clarity instead of confusion. When you spend time alone, you learn how to think for yourself, not react, not mimic, think. Most people move through the world responding to the emotions and opinions around them like a leaf carried by the wind. But solitude gives you the chance to become the tree instead of the leaf. You develop roots, you become grounded, you stop letting the world push you into places you never chose for yourself. Your thoughts become your own, not borrowed or shaped by someone else's beliefs. That kind of mental independence is a rare kind of strength. Solitude also helps you understand your emotions instead of running from them. When you're constantly surrounded by people, it's easy to hide what you're feeling behind activity, conversation, or distraction. But when the world quiets down, all the emotions you've buried rise to the surface. The heartbreak you never dealt with, the fear you pretended didn't exist, the dreams you silenced because someone told you they were impossible. In solitude, you're confronted with yourself, and while that can be uncomfortable, it's exactly what transforms you, because healing only happens when you face what hurts. Growth only happens when you acknowledge what's holding you back. Strength only happens when you stop hiding. Solitude gives you the space to breathe, feel, cry, heal, and rebuild. And when you rise from that kind of internal work, you're different, you're steadier, calmer, more in control of your own heart. Your emotional strength grows because you stop depending on others to stabilize you. You learn how to calm your own storms, how to talk yourself through fear, how to stay steady when life shakes you. You stop seeking validation from the outside and start building it from the inside. And that shift alone can change the entire direction of your life. A person who knows how to regulate their emotions becomes unstoppable. They don't break easily. They don't crumble under pressure. They don't fall apart when someone leaves or something fails. They stand, they breathe, they adjust, they move. Even science recognizes the power of solitude. Studies show that people who spend intentional time alone are more focused, more self-aware, and better problem solvers. Their stress levels decrease, their creativity skyrockets, their emotional intelligence strengthens. They recover faster from setbacks because they know how to restore themselves without relying on others to fix them. Solitude becomes their training ground for resilience. Think about people who excel in any area of life: athletes, leaders, artists, thinkers. Every one of them has a season of isolation. They pull away from the world to practice, to reflect, to build discipline, to develop inner strength, not because they dislike people, but because greatness requires time alone. Strength requires space. Growth requires silence. Solitude is where you build the muscles the world can't see until it's time to use them. And the beauty of it is this: when you come out of solitude, you don't just return stronger, you return wiser. You see people differently. You choose relationships more carefully. You no longer tolerate chaos, drama, or disrespect. Your standards rise because you've learned how to stand on your own 2 feet. You've learned that peace is priceless, and you're no longer willing to give it away easily. Solitude strengthens you mentally and emotionally by teaching you the most powerful truth you'll ever learn. You can carry yourself, and once you know that, you stop fearing loss, rejection, or loneliness. You become whole, steady, and grounded, and that strength stays with you long after the silence fades. There are seasons in life when the world pulls away from you, when doors close, when people go silent, when the crowd that once surrounded you suddenly disappears. In those moments, it's easy to think something is wrong, to assume you've been abandoned or forgotten. But isolation has a purpose far bigger than loneliness. It's the space where vision is born. It's the quiet room where greatness whispers. It's the one place where you can hear the call meant only for you. When you step away from distractions, from noise, from the opinions that try to shape your direction, your inner voice finally gets a chance to rise. Most people never discover their true vision because their lives are too loud. They're constantly surrounded by expectations, pulled by pressures, influenced by crowds who have no idea what they're capable of. But isolation clears the air. It gives you a silence deep enough to hear your dreams again. Every great idea, every major shift, every powerful purpose in this world started in isolation. Think of inventors who spent years tinkering in a garage, unseen and unheard. Think of writers who sat alone in rooms pouring their hearts into stories long before anyone cared to read them. Think of leaders who disappeared from the public eye to reflect, think, regroup, and come back stronger. Vision doesn't grow on crowded streets. It grows in the quiet corners where your mind can stretch without boundaries. When you are isolated, you begin to see beyond what is. You start imagining what could be. Your mind becomes sharper because no one is interrupting your thoughts. You become more honest with yourself because no one is around to judge your dreams. You learn what you truly want, not what people told you to want. And that clarity is priceless. Isolation also protects the early stages of your vision. A dream is fragile when it's born. If you share it too soon, people can crush it with doubt, fear, or small-mindedness. They'll tell you it's impossible, unreasonable, unrealistic. Not because they're right, but because they can't see what you see. That's why isolation is so important. It shields the spark until it becomes a flame strong enough to survive the wind. In that space, you begin planning, reflecting, and imagining without limits. You start seeing the bigger picture, the long-term path, the steps between where you are and where you want to be. Isolation gives you time to understand your gifts, your strengths, your calling. It's the workshop where your future takes shape. There's a famous pattern you'll notice if you study people who made a lasting impact. Before their breakthrough, there was always a period where they stepped away. Sometimes by choice, sometimes by circumstance. They didn't fight that isolation. They used it. They trained. They learned. They thought. They transformed. They let the solitude sharpen their focus and rebuild their confidence. When they finally stepped back out into the world, they carried something the crowd had never seen before. Vision, and vision changes everything. It pushes you through obstacles others would quit at. It gives you purpose when things get tough. It fuels your discipline, your patience, your resilience. Because once you've seen the possibility in your mind, life can't talk you out of it. Isolation isn't about being alone forever. It's about stepping into the silence long enough to hear the truth of who you are and what you're meant to do. It's about pulling away so you can rise with direction instead of drifting without purpose. It's about understanding that the world doesn't define your path, you do. When isolation enters your life, don't fear it, don't fight it, lean into it, let it teach you, let it show you, let it reveal the parts of yourself that only silence can uncover. Because in that stillness, in that space where nothing seems to be happening, something powerful is being formed within you, vision, clarity, purpose, the blueprint for your next chapter. And when that vision is fully grown, you won't come out the same. You'll step back into the world with a fire in your eyes and direction in your spirit. You'll move with intention, with focus, with confidence. You'll walk a path others can't understand because you built it alone. That is the gift of isolation. That is where vision is born. There is a certain kind of strength that only reveals itself when you walk alone. It's not the kind you get from applause, support, or company. It's the kind that grows in silence, in struggle, in the moments where you have no one to lean on but yourself. Walking alone forces you to cultivate discipline and self-dependence in ways you never would if life was always crowded and comfortable. It turns you into someone who can carry your own weight, someone who can show up for yourself even when no one is watching. Discipline begins the moment you stop expecting someone else to push you. When you walk alone, there's no one checking if you woke up on time, no one reminding you to chase your goals, no one making sure you stay on track. It's just you, and that responsibility is what strengthens your character. You become accountable to yourself. You learn to follow through not because someone is holding you to it, but because you made a promise to your own future. That's the kind of discipline that lasts. It's built from internal fire, not external pressure. Think of the people who rise to the top in any field. The early mornings that no one sees. The late nights when everyone else is sleeping. The sacrifices that go unnoticed. They didn't get there because someone held their hand. They got there because they trained themselves to keep moving, even in the absence of encouragement. Walking alone teaches you that you don't need an audience to be great. You only need consistency. Self-dependence grows in the same quiet place. When you walk alone, you learn to solve your own problems. Instead of waiting for answers, you create them. Instead of leaning on others to guide your steps, you start trusting your own decisions. You realize that you're capable of more than you ever gave yourself credit for. You stop looking outside for strength and start discovering the strength inside. And once you find it, it becomes a permanent part of you. Life will always test your independence. There will be seasons where people you count on can't show up, moments where help isn't available, unexpected storms that leave you standing in the middle of uncertainty with no one to hold your hand. If you've been walking through life dependent on others, those moments will break you. But if you've walked alone before, if you've built discipline and self-reliance, those moments will make you stronger. You'll know how to steady yourself. You'll know how to adjust, adapt, and keep moving. There's something powerful about realizing you can stand without support. It frees you. It removes fear. It gives you confidence that no matter what happens, you can handle it. You won't stay stuck waiting for someone to rescue you. You won't shrink because someone walked away. You won't give up because the path got lonely. You'll keep going because you've walked alone before, and you know how to survive the silence. Walking alone also sharpens your focus. Without the noise of others, your priorities become clearer. You stop wasting time on distractions, drama, or people who don't value your growth. You learn how to discipline your mind, to stay on the path even when it's challenging, even when doubt whispers in your ear. That level of focus becomes a weapon in a world full of interruptions. There's real beauty in the transformation that happens when you walk alone. You start building a relationship with yourself. You learn your weaknesses, face your fears, and strengthen the parts of you that need it most. You learn what motivates you and what holds you back. You understand your rhythms, your habits, your triggers. You start designing a life based on your truth, not the expectations of others. And when you finally return to the world, you're different. You're not needy. You're not dependent. You're not easily swayed or shaken. You've built discipline that keeps you moving and self-dependence that keeps you grounded. You don't rely on anyone to validate your path. You don't collapse when people disappoint you. You trust yourself because you've proven to yourself that you can walk alone and still rise. That strength is earned, not given, and it becomes the foundation for every success that comes after. Walking alone doesn't weaken you. It prepares you. It shapes you into someone who can lead, someone who can endure, someone who can build a life from courage instead of fear. When you walk alone, you don't just learn discipline and independence. You learn who you are, and once you know that, nothing and no one can stop your rise. There are seasons when life pulls you into solitude, not to punish you, but to prepare you. When you walk alone, you begin to understand yourself in ways you never could when surrounded by noise. And that understanding becomes the foundation for every relationship and opportunity waiting for you in the future. Walking alone isn't the end of connection. It's the beginning of better, healthier, stronger connections. It's preparation for the life you truly deserve. When you spend time alone, you learn what you value, what you want, and what you will no longer tolerate. Too many people enter relationships or opportunities without knowing themselves, and that lack of clarity leads to confusion, disappointment, and pain. But solitude forces you to evaluate your boundaries, your standards, and your purpose. You learn what kind of people nourish your spirit and what kind drain it. You learn what kind of environments make you grow and what kind stunt your progress. That self-awareness becomes a powerful filter for the future. Walking alone also teaches you emotional maturity. When you're by yourself, you learn how to regulate your emotions, how to calm your storms, how to steady your thoughts. You stop relying on others to fix your feelings. And that kind of emotional independence is the key to healthy relationships. You stop expecting people to heal pain they didn't cause. You don't cling, you don't beg, you don't break down when someone can't show up the way you hope. You remain steady because you learned how to care for yourself first. There's a confidence that grows in solitude. When you prove to yourself that you can stand without anyone holding you up, you walk differently. You speak differently, you choose differently. You no longer stay where you are not valued because you know you can walk away and still stand strong. That confidence attracts opportunities and people who recognize your worth. It pulls better relationships into your life because you finally see yourself clearly. Walking alone also helps you develop patience. You stop rushing into connections out of fear of being alone. You stop jumping into opportunities out of desperation. You start waiting for what aligns with your purpose, not just what fills a temporary void. Patience is a quiet strength, and solitude teaches you that not everything good comes quickly. Some of the greatest blessings arrive in perfect timing, and walking alone teaches you to trust that timing. You also learn how to communicate better when you've spent time alone. You understand your triggers, your fears, your wounds, your hopes. You can articulate what you need instead of expecting people to read your mind. Healthy communication is the heart of strong relationships, and solitude gives you the clarity to communicate truthfully, not emotionally. When you walk alone for a while, you attract different relationships. Not because other people changed, but because you did. You stop accepting half, love, inconsistent effort, or disrespect. You stop entertaining people who only show up when they need something. You start requiring respect, honesty, and effort, and the people who enter your life after that will feel the difference. They'll meet a version of you who knows exactly who they are and what they deserve. The same happens with opportunities. Walking alone gives you time to develop your skills, refine your vision, and strengthen your discipline. When the right door opens, you're ready, you're sharp, you're prepared. Solitude becomes the training ground where you build the muscles success will demand. Focus, patience, resilience, and self-belief. Opportunities don't just come to people who wish for them. They come to those who are prepared. Walking alone is part of that preparation. Real growth rarely happens in crowds. It happens in quiet seasons where you confront yourself, challenge yourself, and build yourself. Those seasons shape you into someone capable of blessing others, contributing deeply, and handling the weight of success without collapsing. Walking alone transforms you from someone who needs validation into someone who carries their own worth. And when that transformation is complete, life begins sending you relationships that elevate you, not drain you. Opportunities that grow you, not break you. Spaces where you can thrive, not shrink. You step into a future that reflects the strength you earned in solitude. Walking alone is not a life sentence, it's preparation. And what waits on the other side is bigger, better, and more aligned with the person you're becoming. So if you're in a season of solitude right now, if you feel like you're walking a road nobody understands, don't be discouraged. This is not punishment, this is preparation. You're being strengthened, sharpened, elevated. You're building a foundation that cannot be shaken by abandonment, rejection, or doubt. Keep walking, keep believing, keep trusting the process, You are becoming someone unbreakable, someone confident, someone powerful. You are becoming someone who doesn't just survive alone. You become someone who grows there, because sometimes the strongest version of you is born when you walk alone.